Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt, and this one's going to be a short one, so sorry about that, but I've been a little sick and I don't want to push my throat more than it wants to go. But today we're talking about juke. Juke, or footwork, is a genre of upbeat, jittery electronic dance music that was born out of the Chicago house scene in the 90s. Very near to the beginning of juke as a genre, it was catching on in Japan in some clubs and has seen the evolution of a burgeoning underground kind of indie juke scene in Japan with big artists like DJ Full Tono, Paisley Parks, and the ever strange and unpredictable Food Man, who I have reviewed on the channel before. And this is a quick overview of 3 new juke releases that came out just within the past few months that I think were pretty good and should set you on the right path if you're looking to get into this, or if you're already into it and are just looking for some new stuff to add to your collection. First up, we've got the new split EP between Seimei and Kent Alexander. Seimei is a DJ and electronic music producer of various kind of subgenres, who is also a co-founder of the indie net label Trekkie Tracks, which you should probably be following if you're into this kind of stuff. And Kent Alexander is a notable juke producer and event organizer based out of Yokohama, who is just kind of an important name in the Japanese juke scene. He's a member of a number of groups, including Paisley Parks, who I mentioned earlier and we will be talking about later. And he does a lot of event organization and is just generally, good for the scene. But getting into this EP, this thing is filled with some fairly high production value and ambitious and kind of large-scale beats, especially for a juke release, which is often a kind of minimalistic genre in a lot of ways. Seimei's track, I Felt the Love, starts off with this big explosive sax sample and a booming sub-bass kick, and just a great groove that really starts off this split EP with a bang. I also really like his track No, which uses a vocal sample that sounds like it's from an R&B song, though I don't recognize the track, and combines it with this juke beat and some kind of spacey, trancey synthesizers to really great effect. The song is really slickly produced and sounds great. And of course, Kent Alexander is no slouch on this thing either. His first track, Marine Rogue, features this jazzy keyboard sample with this jittery juke beat under it, and some interesting sound play, including some cut up and manipulated dolphin sounds that actually sound pretty great on the track. We also hear a bit more of his experimental side on tracks like Monkey, where he takes this, I think, orchestral sample of some sort, though it's really hard to tell with how manipulated it gets over the course of the track. But he takes it and he puts it over top of these booming sub-bassy kicks, and he cuts it up and just distorts it, and towards the end he's stretching it out to where it's just super slow and it gets super grainy, and then he uses that to make like a new beat and a whole new texture towards the end of the track. It's definitely a bit experimental and kind of out there, but a very compelling track, I think. He takes a similar approach, though, to a less extreme conclusion on the track Who Are You, a song which samples and cuts up and distorts the track Who Are You by The Who. Overall, I think this is a really solid spit from 2 really notable artists in the Japanese indie electronic music scenes, and I think it's definitely worth checking out if any of this sounds up your alley. Next up, we have the new Various Artists compilation courtesy of the Omoide label, Juke Shioya Illmatic Science. This is, I believe, the 4th or 5th Juke Shioya compilation that the Omoide label has put out, and they've all been pretty solid. This thing is a little bit hit or miss, but there are 17 tracks, all by different juke artists from all over Japan, so there's bound to be something here for everybody, and this thing is name your own price on Bandcamp. And also worth mentioning, the Omoide label's whole discography is up for only 1,500 yen, which is absolutely nuts value. If you're looking to get into net labels or the indie electronic scene in Japan, I highly recommend you pick up that discography. I don't really have enough time to really dig into this thing in a huge amount of depth, but some standout tracks on here for me were DJ NHK Guy's The Max, which is a song that features some really interesting and creative uses of like cutting up and stuttering samples. And it's a really dynamic track as well that is constantly changing and evolving over the course of the runtime, which I really appreciate. Yuichi Nagao's track Summertime is kind of uniquely cute and upbeat and lighthearted and pretty. And Caramel Brain Idea's song Circulation is an 11-minute monster that consists mostly of a kind of pulsating wall of synthesizer noise over top of a busy but somewhat subdued and bassy juke beat that sometimes borders on just straight up kind of European techno. I also really like the track He Is by Pencil, which features some really great just cutting and stuttering of samples, especially on the drop of the song, which is something that I'm more used to hearing from like a hardcore techno track or like a speedcore track or something, but it's kind of toned down and put into this jukey, footworky setting, and I think it actually turns out really well. It's a really nice track, definitely one of the more memorable kind of hard-hitting moments on the album. And next up we have Coffin Number 6 from Paisley Parks. I'm kind of double dipping here a little bit because, as I mentioned, Kent Alexander is a member of Paisley Parks. But this is definitely a project that needs to be promoted a bit, as this is the 6th in a weekly series that Paisley Park has been putting out. They've been putting out 10 tracks every week. I think it's every Friday for the past 6 weeks. And while it's not all great, there are definitely a couple songs that I feel are a little underwhelming. There's a lot of really great stuff on here that's worth checking out. Just on this one, I think the track Yakuza and Playa are both really great. And the closer, Diz is Cocaine, is also a really interesting track with a kind of dark edge to it. This stuff is definitely a little bit more experimental, a little bit more abrasive, maybe a bit darker than a lot of the stuff on the prior 2 releases that I just talked about. Some of the stuff on here even reminds me of like a Death Grips instrumental at times. But over the course of these 6 releases, they really span the gamut. And there's a little bit of everything on these releases. And if you're looking for more juke to check out, you definitely need to be aware of this Coffin project that Paisley Parks are doing. I don't know how long they're going to be doing it for, but they've dropped 60 tracks so far in less than 2 months. And most of them are pretty solid. So yeah, that's me. That's all the time I got today. But definitely check these out if you're looking to get into juke. If you don't know what juke is, but you dig kind of dance music and bassy music in general, definitely check out these releases. Check out some of these artists. If one of these artists on like these comps or something catches your ear, definitely check them out. They've probably got a back catalog of a bunch of stuff that's worth listening to. And yeah, just generally check out the Japanese juke scene. There's some cool stuff going on there. So yeah, I'll see you guys next week for a new review. Peace.